Today, we get to take a look at the 2011 Porsche Boxster. This is certainly not the fastest or most expensive car we've looked at, but this is arguably the most fun you can have for under $30,000, and I'm gonna show you why. So let's go ahead and start with how this thing looks. First of all, in 2005, they redesigned the Porsche Boxster so it doesn't have those weird sort of droopy headlights on it, so I really like this design. And a big factor as to why I think this looks so good is because this looks very similar to a 911. You have to know Porsches in order to distinguish the two from the front end. The only differences really are the fact that the Boxster has a pretty significantly smaller grille, and also the headlights are shaped just a little bit different. Now, when you look at the front end of this thing, the first thing you'll realize is the grille size is tiny. Well, that's because the engine is actually not up front. It's back there. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, these little side areas are opened up to help air flow through and provide cooling to those brakes, but other than that, this front end, there's not a lot going on. However, I think that's a good thing. You just get the beautiful Porsche badge and those nice headlights, just a simple, very classy design. I love it. And not to mention, I think this car in white looks amazing too. Now, if we go ahead and pop open the frunk, you actually do get a ton of space up here. This may be a very small car, but as long as you're not moving around big stuff, this could be a grocery runner easily. Now, taking a look at the side of the Boxster, first of all, I think the color of these wheels complement the white almost perfectly. It looks really good to me. As for your wheel sizes, you're gonna get 19-inch wheels, which are pretty big compared to the size of the car, and your tires are gonna be 235 in width. And as for your brakes, your calipers have Porsche on them, and they are 4-piston brakes up front. This car weighs under 3,000 pounds. So not only can it brake super fast, but this thing feels fast too. Now, as you could tell, this is obviously a convertible. In fact, all Boxsters are convertibles. If you want a hardtop Boxster, that's what's known as the Porsche Cayman, which we did review one of those. Check that out after you watch this. Now, on the side of the Boxster, you get a pretty massive vent right here, but this is another telltale sign that you're looking at a Boxster, not a 911. First of all, the 911 Carreras don't even have a side vent. The 911 Turbos do, but you can really tell the difference between a vent on a Boxster versus a 911 Turbo. And you can also see how short this car is in length. It's just a little bit longer than my wingspan, but that is what you want with this car. It is so fun to corner this thing. Now, this is a rear-wheel drive car, so your tire widths in the front are going to be slightly larger. They're 265 instead of 235s. You do get the same 19-inch wheels, and the brakes back here are 2-piston brakes. And yes, these brakes may not sound that impressive. They do have Porsche written on them, which looks really good, but you don't need a whole lot of braking power for this car. Now, in my opinion, the back end of this car doesn't look that good to me. I still think it's better than the previous generation. First of all, you have these taillights that are just a little bit strange looking. The back end of this is very distinguishable from a 911. You know you're looking at a Boxster when you see this. First of all, it literally has Boxster written on the back end here, and you also have just one exhaust tip back here. All right, now let's go ahead and talk performance. First of all, the engine bay in the Boxster is actually very annoying and difficult to access. I can only imagine that makes your maintenance costs more expensive. But in the middle of this Boxster is a 2.9-liter flat-6 engine that makes 255 horsepower and 214 pound-feet of torque. Those power numbers allow the Boxster to do 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds and the quarter mile in 13.9 seconds. Now, in today's world, that's gonna sound slow, and the internet makes it seem like, oh, you must have the fastest 0 to 60. You must have the fastest quarter mile. No one cares. If you're a true car person, what matters is, do you have the most fun car, not the fastest? And you get two choices with this engine. You can either do a 6-speed manual, which this one has, and I highly recommend it, or you could do a dual clutch automatic transmission. A dual clutch in 2011, that's pretty insane. Now, here is the trade-off. This is the base model Boxster, which I think is plenty to have a lot of fun with your car, but you can step up to the Boxster S. That has a 3.4-liter flat-6 engine that makes 310 horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque. That makes a pretty big difference. The power numbers in the Boxster S allow it to do the 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds and the quarter mile in 13.4 seconds. One day we'll get our hands on one and compare the two. too. And not to mention, there's also a button inside of the interior, which we'll talk about in a second, that allows you to actually raise the spoiler that's on the back of this car. So to sum up the exterior design of this car, I think it looks amazing for being 2011. The front end of this is by far my favorite, and it's not just how fun this car is to drive, which I'll take you for a drive in a second, it's the fact that you actually look like you got a lot of money when you drive this thing. But this car that you're looking at right now is valued at right around $25,000. That is what seriously makes me want to buy this car. As we do all of these reviews on the channel, I hope I'm helping you decide what's best for you, but this is gonna be in my top 3 out of all the cars we've looked at. All right, let's hop in the Boxster and see what you get inside of here. All right, first things first, take a look at the color inside of here. This burgundy, while I've had it, has already gotten multiple compliments. When I first saw pictures of this, I thought to myself, I think it's gonna look a little bit weird. But now that I'm sitting in here, I think it complements the class of Porsche very nicely. So first of all, this door panel is completely burgundy, just like the rest of the interior. You can notice some wear and tear on this. I have not mentioned yet that this car has over 100,000 miles on it. Everything works great. It sounds great, it feels great, and that's Porsche for you. Sure, maintenance may be costly, but these things are ultra bulletproof. So on this door panel, you get memory seat controls, which is impressive for 2011, but makes sense, we're in a Porsche. You also get your window switches and your mirror controls. Not to mention a Bose sound system. I mean, this thing is nice for 2011. Now, these seats have a very, very weird design. This is a small car, so I imagine they're just trying to get everything kind of squished in here, but it does feel nice. They look nice, they're leather, and they have the Porsche logo on the headrest. Now, when you take a seat in here, you just feel like you're at home. First of all, I love the gauge cluster of Porsches from this era, and the steering wheel feels and looks so nice. It's also held up very, very well. This is a 13-year-old car with 100,000 miles on it, and it still, for the most part, looks very nice. One thing that's very cool about the gauge cluster in Porsches is the emphasis you have on your RPM gauge. It's right in the middle, and it's the biggest one because you're focused on driving it, not how fast you're going. You'll worry about that later once the cop gives you a ticket, if you so choose to pull over. And you'll notice that the RPM gauge revs to over 7,000 RPM. That is awesome for a car like this. And right when you look in the center console of this thing, to complement the looks, the weight, the high revving engine, you get that 6-speed manual transmission. Yes, a dual clutch automatic is awesome, but for a Boxster, you kind of have to go with a manual. Other than that though, the center console is very, very bare. There's not a whole lot to look at. You get your parking brake, you get your convertible switches as well, which is very nice. And this car puts the top up for you, which is also super impressive. I guess you would expect that from a Porsche, but that's awesome to see from 2011. Now, right above the center console, the first thing I want to point out is the fact that you have a button to put your spoiler up or down. I freaking love that with Porsches. And of course you get your climate control, but also this infotainment system, sure, it's outdated, but it still works better than infotainment systems that are made today. It's very responsive. It feels very, very reliable. There's just not a lot of cool stuff in there. It's really just for your radio. In the back here, of course, you also get your roll bar and this little extra window to help with all the wind flowing through. But this car is just plain, classic, simple, and it's meant to just drive and have fun. And let's floor it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Like, when you hear 250-ish horsepower, you immediately jump to thinking that it's just a slow car. This thing is, it moves. It actually does move. And because it's a naturally aspirated engine, the higher you climb up in that RPM band, the faster the car goes. It is so nice. I mean, even sitting in this interior, you feel like you're in a reliable work of art. That is, I can't think of a better way to describe this car than that. It is so awesome. I would say this car is in the top 3 for cars that I'm gonna buy in the future. It is just perfect for road conditions. Now, if you live in open back roads with like 0 cops around, yeah, this may not be fast enough for you, but for where I live, I think this is perfect. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you check out the other videos as well. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.